In Panorama, the way we include additional configuration elements that we can push to the firewalls regarding network, the network tab, and also the device tab is using a feature called templates, which I'm going to walk you through right now. So back here at the Panorama dashboard, we now have the policies and objects thanks to device groups that we created. And we also configured the Oregon tag associated with the device group called Oregon. And if we go back to Nevada, you'll notice that it doesn't have that tag. It's not associated with that group. However, Nevada does have, under policies, it does have the Nevada security rule that if we swap back over to Oregon, Oregon does not have. So let's take the next step and let's add options that we can include from the network tab and also from the device tab, which are currently missing. So to include those two additional tabs, we are going to go to Panorama up at the top here. And on the left, right above device groups, we are going to click on templates right there. So with template selected, we have no templates. So what we're going to do is add a template. And think of a template like a container that has settings that we can apply to a device. So if we click on add, we can create a template. And let's create a template. I'm going to call it T for template dash DNS. And we'll click on OK. So that's just a template called DNS. It's got no values in it yet. We'll fix that in a moment. And let's create another template that we can use. And let's go ahead and call it loopback_1. So we'll click on OK. So we have these two placeholders, these two templates, but check out what happened. When we created that very first template, it automatically gave us a network tab and a device tab. It also conveniently tells us those are both associated with templates in Panorama. And the configuration of the data regarding network elements or device elements is very similar to what we had with device groups. Let me show you. So let's imagine we had a few hundred firewalls and we want them to use a specific DNS server or servers. So what we would do is we'd go to device, which is where that's located on the firewall. And with device selected, with the reminder right here that it's part of a template, we would then go to services, which is where we configure the DNS. And very, very important, which I always forget, is that before we start making changes here, make sure we're on the right template. So currently it's template loopback1. If we want to have the DNS template include the DNS information, make sure you're on the right template before you start configuring. So with device selected, and the correct template selected, and on setup on the far left, then if we go to services, which again is where the DNS information is, we can go ahead and click on the gear here. And what we're really configuring is we're configuring the template called T-DNS with whatever values we want that template to have. So let's imagine we want to configure some DNS servers. How about 208.67? In fact, let me just take a peek real quick. I'm going to take a peek at Firewall 1. I want to verify what its current DNS is because I want to change it so we can see the difference. So this is Firewall 1 in gray mode, we'll call it. And right here it's showing that Panorama has logged into it, which it is. It's managing it. And if we go to device, I just want to verify what the current DNS is. So with device selected here on the firewall directly, and with setup on the left selected, we'll click on the sub-tab of services. And survey says it's using 8888. That's a Google DNS server, and it does not have a secondary DNS server specified. Okay, great. I just want to make sure I knew what we were starting with. So back at Panorama. So for the primary DNS server, we'll specify 208.67.222.222. And then for the secondary DNS server, we'll do 208.67.220.220. So those are DNS servers that are publicly available that anybody can use. Even the free version of OpenDNS, which is now called Umbrella by Cisco, even the free version is going to help you knock down some malware and stuff by doing a pretty good job of preventing you from going to sites that would otherwise harm you. All right, so it's not foolproof, but it's a step in the right direction. So let me check my work here. We have a template called T-DNS. Regarding that, I have a primary and secondary DNS server, which are way different than 8888. So I have some visual differences there so you can see it. And we'll click on OK. So that's an example of modifying or configuring a template under device. Next, let's modify a template in the category of network. So under network, we have all those traditional things here on the left that you'd typically find under the network section for a firewall. So before I get too excited, I'm also going to make sure I change my template because I want to configure the details for the template called loopback_1. So here in Panorama, with network selected and the correct template selected, under interfaces on the left, I'm going to go ahead and the sub-tab, click on loopback, and I'm going to create a loopback interface. So we'll click on add. We'll call this loopback1. So we can't control the name, but we can control the number. So I'm going to call it loopback1. And for its IP address, I'm going to click on add. I'm going to give it 1.1.1.1/32. And there's also an option for using a variable. We'll cover variables and additional panorama stuff in a separate set of videos. But for now, this loopback1 template represents a loopback1 interface with this IP address. And let me go ahead and remove that empty field because it's not going to like that. There's also options with where it'll be assigned, including the virtual router and so forth. But for the demo, just having that IPv4 address as part of this loopback1 template, that'll be enough. So we'll go ahead and click on OK. And I will go ahead and commit that in Panorama by clicking commit and clicking on commit again, and we'll let it finish. So with the commit done, let's take a quick peek as a review of what we've done so far. So if we go back to the Panorama tab, on the left, if we click on templates, we've got a DNS template, which includes a couple DNS servers. We've got a loopback template, which includes a loopback interface. And also, what if we wanted to apply both those templates to the same firewall? How do we do that? One option, this is pretty cool and it's pretty quick too. And that's right here under Panorama with template selected, we can click on Add Stack. Think of a stack like a combination, greatest hits, where you can combine multiple templates and have them applied. Think of a stack like a group of templates that we want to apply together. So we'll name it our template stack. It's also giving us the opportunity here to associate this template stack with our firewall. We're going to hold off on that again until we bring in the config from that firewall in the next video. But down here under templates, we can click on Add and say, I want loopback1, click on Add, I want DNS. And that's an example of a template stack. It's a grouping of templates. I also want to point out this little note at the bottom here, and that is if there's a conflict. So in our case, loopback is talking about a loopback interface, and the DNS is a DNS setting. So those are not going to be in conflict. But if we had a whole bunch of templates in this template stack, and there was conflicting information, maybe at two different templates specifying different DNS servers, which one would win? And the answer is top wins. That's what this note says right here. And if you want to move them around, you can just select one like loopback1 and say, I want to move it down. Or you can also drag and drop. That's also works. So you can control the order they're in. Just be aware that the template at the top has the highest priority if push comes to shove. All right, so I'll click on OK. And now we have a DNS template, we have a loopback template, and we have a template stack that includes both of them. We also have some device groups. And for Nevada device group, we created a security policy rule that's associated with that group. And for Oregon, we created an object and associated with that group. And it's a combination of the device groups and then the templates and then pushing that out to our firewalls that provides the central management of the firewalls. So our next challenge is this, and it's also the reason why I did not include Firewall 1 yet in any of the device groups or templates. And that's because Firewall 1 has a full config. In fact, let's take a quick peek. If we go back to Firewall 1 and we go to policies, it's got security policies. The coloring is due to that dark mode. That's why it looks a little funny. It's got security policies. It's got NAT policies. If we go under objects, under security profiles, we have antivirus, anti-spyware. In fact, if we go back to policies and we click on security, we can see here that rule number 1 has security profiles for antivirus, for anti-spyware, vulnerability protection, URL filtering, and also wildfire submission. So we have a couple of things that we need to do. We need to have all these objects and all this configuration that's currently on Firewall 1. We need to train Panorama about that. And secondly, we need to tell Panorama, hey, this firewall with all this config, it needs to still use it. Can you do that? The answer is yes, if you know how. And that's exactly what we're going to do in the very next video. So I'll see you in that next video in just a moment. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.